Hello. The name of the show is Living Wisdom, and I'm Patty Paul. Today I'm delighted to have two special friends of mine on the show as guests. The first friend that I'll introduce right now is Steve Parrish. And Steve and I have known each other for a number of years. He's quite a metaphysician, quite a healer in his own right. And Steve also is a channel. He channels a wonderful being friend of mine by the name of Elanor. So Steve, as we go along, I'll ask you to bring in Elanor. But
All right.
first, I'd like you to share with us the wonderful story you once told me about your encounter with dolphins, your first encounter with dolphins.
All right. I used to live about 2 miles from the beach, and I had a real habit of getting up at about 3 in the morning and going for a walk, and I would often end up right down at the beach just at sunrise, and down at pods of dolphins would come by, and I was entranced with them. I always thought it was very interesting. But one morning I was down there. It was very, very early. The sun wasn't even quite up. It was very cold. I was the only person on the beach, and this big pod of dolphins came by, and I could hear them talking to me, and they were calling me, going, "Steve, Steve." And I'm walking along the beach telling them all the reasons why I can't do this, not the least of which is that I don't really know how to swim. I can kind of doggy paddle, and it's very cold and 6 o'clock in the morning, and I don't have any swim trunks. But they were very persistent, and I finally surrendered and took off my clothes and swam out into the freezing ocean, and was out about maybe 30 yards, and the dolphins just started coming up to me. And one of the most beautiful encounters was a dolphin came up and surfaced maybe 5 feet in front of me, and then her baby came up right in front of that, and it was like she was saying, "See my baby?" And it was just really heartwarming. And I thought I'd had a wonderful dolphin encounter and was deciding it was time I got back in, and I looked off about 100 yards away. These two very large male dolphins turned and started coming straight at me really fast, and I didn't really know what to do, so I kind of curled up in a little ball, and as they got to me, they shot under me, and then two more came from this direction, and they did that about 4 times. I didn't quite know what to think of it, but then the entire pod of about 40 dolphins just came and circled right around me as I sat there just floating in the water, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. You could hear them clicking and feel the sonar. It just went right inside, and energetically, as I came out and started crying my eyes out because it was such an intense experience, there was a very strong sense, almost as if they'd put this cord of light inside, and it is still very much there today.
That is such a beautiful story, Steve. I have, and you have, a lot of friends who often make trips to dolphin territory, so to speak, and have their own beautiful experiences with dolphins. But yours is particularly touching to me because it sounds quite spontaneous. And when you say they were communicating with you, I'm sure you mean intuitively you were hearing that within your own consciousness.
I had just learned how to channel, and I was very open to that kind of thing, and very much it was...
Oh, that's an important point, that you had just opened yourself up, so to speak, to the channeling process.
And it spans a lot of territory.
It certainly does, and I'm learning that more and more myself. Well, without further ado, as they say on television, I'd like you to begin your process of inviting Elanor in, and as we do that, the credits will roll. Well, my friend Steve is still in his process. Elanor will be here soon, I can tell.
All right, well, indeed, we do say greetings. What a pleasure and an honor to have this opportunity to be a
Welcome.
part of a dream that we know that you have
Yes.
been building for quite some time.
It's especially thrilling for me to have you here, Elanor. I was thinking about this, naturally knowing that you were soon going to be a guest on my show. About 3.5 years ago, I was part of a small group, and Steve the Channel participated in that group. And the purpose of our group was to talk about future plans. And just a few days before that group got together, it dawned on me that one day it would be just great if I could have, or be on, a television show to share the information. And back in those days, well, I talked to you about it during the group, a few days we were together in the group, and you were most encouraging. But back in those days, I thought preparing for such a wonderful situation in my life meant taking classes and getting coaching. No, no, no. The kind of preparation that I needed to do had to do with my own personal growth and healing. And you have been such a big part of that in the last year, especially Elanor. And so that's why it's a double pleasure for me, because here we are right in front of television cameras and everything. And I would like us to have kind of the same conversation in a way that we've had so many times,
All right.
but with the emphasis on you doing most of the talking.
All right.
And I'd like, if you would please, talk about responsibility and levels of responsibility and taking more of that, and how empowering that is for us human beings to do that.
All right. We'd be delighted. Perhaps the place to start would be what responsibility is not, because in your world there's a great deal of influence by what we call chauvinism. Chauvinism, that's not just the standard version of males being mean to females, but the truer, deeper form of chauvinism that is rampant, and in that sense it's brings a quality to the way people see and think and feel, and it taints that. And out of that, a lot of people have very mistaken ideas of what responsibility is, and it tends to be defined as blame, shame, guilt, and negative accountability. And if that's what responsibility really was, we'd tell you to run away from it, absolutely. Not to go near it, not to have anything to do with it. And unfortunately, far too many people do exactly that. They think that that's the definition, and therefore they don't want to have anything to do with it. And we'd suggest that none of those are qualities of genuine responsibility. Now, we're crouching this in a version of the concept that you create your own reality, that we're making an assumption that people understand, that you have a level of personal responsibility, that there are a set of what's referred to as raw materials. To list them briefly, there's 6: beliefs and attitudes, thoughts and feelings, choices and decisions. And that's the stuff that from the inside of you, you literally mix and match and squish together to create this thing you call a physical world. And you have tools of imagination and desire and expectation with which you shape those raw materials. And over time, many millennia actually, but particularly the last 500 years or so, chauvinism has colored what people believe in a tremendous way. They've shaped it and shaded it in such a way that you think that power is power over rather than the power from within. It breeds domination and a desire and a sense of wanting to win in such a way that winning is winning over someone else, proving that you're better than someone else, achieving more than the person next door. We would suggest that this chauvinistic paradigm, this world that you live in that is so colored with chauvinism, has that as one of its core motivations, and so many people not even realizing consciously that that's what they're out there for, that that's what they're going after. And it gets in their way frequently. true responsibility and the dominion that comes with it is essentially the counterpoint, the opposite of chauvinism. It's a different paradigm, a paradigm called dominion. And in the paradigm of dominion, you have the possibility of a win-win reality, meaning that not I win over someone else, but that I get everything that I want, and the person next to me gets everything that they want, and the person over there gets everything that they want. That we all can take from the universe the infinite supply, we can tap into it, whether that's energy or specific resource. We tap into it and it is inexhaustible. In the chauvinistic paradigm, people tend to think of the world as being very limited in supply. And it's easy to go there. It's easy to look out into your world and look at what you see in your physical world and say, well, it is limited supply. Look at things like the shortage of natural resources and that sort of thing. And it's easy to believe that there truly is, in the physical sense, limited resource. From the metaphysical perspective, recognizing that if you create your reality through this process of working with your raw materials, shaping and honing them, creating this that you see out here that's physical, to realize whatever manifests in the physical world has to come through your set of raw materials first. It has to come through your set of beliefs first. And that's the good news, because that's where real responsibility has its juice, if you will, has its power, has its excitement. Because when you can own that, when you can hold that this physical world is a feedback mechanism only. It shows me pictures of what's true inside of me, and it never lies to me about my reality. Now, I can lie to me about what I'm seeing, and a lot of people do. A lot of people slip into a sense of what we call the martyr's position, where they believe genuinely that the world happens to them, and the best they can do is to get by. The best they can do is move the blocks around. And we would suggest taking true responsibility is when you own in your heart and in your mind that no matter what I'm seeing in the physical world, it had to come from me. And if I don't judge that, if I don't pass judgment on it, if I don't bring in a set of judges and critics, I just look at my world and I see, here's a reflection, here's a reflection. What would I have to be believing to see that in my physical world? And I look at my world and I see a lot of problems there, absolutely so. But I can respond. I can make a difference. I can have impact. And I do that by looking at that world, seeing what's important to me. And if what I'm seeing isn't matching what I want to be seeing, then I can sit down with myself, I can go into meditation, I can talk to my higher self or to other guides, and I can sit down and I can look at my raw materials one by one. So around this issue, what am I believing? What do I think is true? What are my attitudes? And we would suggest that attitudes are to beliefs like stringing pearls on a necklace. When you take several sets of beliefs and you put them together, and in that sense, for those of you who work with computers, it's like creating a macro. And when you're setting up the computer to do something particular, and you don't want to have to do that thing every day, and it may have 20 steps. So you write a program where you push one button and those 20 steps happen automatically. Bloop, 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 and it's done. Well, attitudes are like that with beliefs. Thoughts, feelings, the biggest problem there. A lot of you are very aware of your thoughts, but not totally clear on where they come from in that sense. A lot of you not so aware of your feelings. There's definitely in your world there's a tendency to shove them away, to judge them, to say, I only want the good happy feelings and I don't want those ugly bad feelings. And we suggest again, the only dangerous emotion is an unexpressed one. Because it's part of your raw materials. It's part of the very stuff that you make reality out of. 1/6 of your natural power in that sense. Choices and decisions. Choices are counterpoint to beliefs. Decisions counterpoint to attitudes, and decisions are to choices, very much like attitudes are to belief. Stringing pearls on a necklace. When you have a series of choices to make, you don't want to make them one at a time every single day, so you string them together and you wear that necklace. But you forget what you have on in that sense. And wanting to look to your raw materials to say, what do I really believe? What do I really think? What do I really feel? What choices am I making that are directly a product of what I feel, that are directly influenced by what I believe? And that then manifests into my physical world. It manifests after I've thought it, after I've felt it, after I already have a belief in place. And the good news is you can change your raw materials, that you're not stuck with them. So if you look at your world and you see something in it that you don't want to be there, you can work with those raw materials to reshape them. You can ask yourself hard questions about, what do I really believe, and am I willing to let that belief go? Where did it come from in the first place? A lot of people carrying around beliefs that aren't even their own. They received them from their parents, who received them from their parents before them, who received them from their parents before them, handed down generation to generation. And wonderful good news, there are so many of you, the map makers, those who came here to this planet with the intention, with the decision to draw a line and say, no, I'm going to change this. I'm going to work on it differently. I'm going to find the way to tap in to my spirituality, to my living, breathing, conscious relationship with God, Goddess, all that is.
And that is the empowering part of it too, is when you start examining your own raw materials and tools to see, how could I have possibly created this reality, and then finding ways to shift and change those, and then creating a new reality.
Absolutely.
That is thrilling, and it is absolutely empowering.
And very exciting. And where you're going to have the hardest time is in personal relationships, is what we've seen
Yes.
in that sense. It's
Yes.
so easy to blame it on somebody else,
Yes.
to fall into that trap, especially if it's someone who's really important to you in that sense, that your husband or your lover or your best friend comes by and there they are, screaming martyrs in that
Yes.
sense, to say, oh, that's a reflection of me. That has to be, or it could not be in my reality, because I create my own reality 100%, no exceptions, no fine print. We have a wonderful antidote to share that might help people understand what we're talking about. For those of you who garden, even for those of you who don't, who have been out working every now and then outside in that sense, and you're out there and you're digging and you're planting and you're getting your hands all dirty and you're sticking trees or flowers or whatever it is you're working with, and it's hot and you decide, okay, I'm going to go inside. And you go inside and you look in the mirror and there's dirt on your nose. Do you try to scrub it off of the mirror? Because it won't work. You can scrub and scrub and scrub. You can smash that mirror and replace it with a new one, and it's still going to be your dirt on your nose. And that's what we mean when we're talking about personal relationships. It's so easy to think it's somebody else, it's somebody else is doing it. It's them, it's not me. But if I'm looking in that particular mirror, then it's my dirt on my nose. And if rather than judging it and blaming and pointing my finger saying it's them, it's them, it's them, I say, no, the truth is at a creation level it's me, then I can take the responsibility for cleaning my own nose. And when my nose is clean and I look at that mirror, it is not going to be showing me the dirt. So literally, physically, that other person can change before your very eyes, as if by magic.
Yes, you so much this past year, you have helped me just in that way with personal relationships, taking my own responsibility to deeper and deeper levels more frequently. And I...
Whether you liked it or not.
Right, and thank goodness you've been so honest with me to help me see the higher truths of what was going on in my own personal life. And I see that what seems to be the case is that those closest to me, like my children and my mother, are such reflections of the parts of me that I have heretofore denied.
Yes.
And they, of course, are the easy targets for blaming because they're so close. As you mentioned, in relationships, the spouse or the boyfriend or the girlfriend, we just have a normal tendency to blame them. But if we see them more as reflections of parts of ourselves, why it gives a whole different perspective on relationships and also on reality.
Yes, indeed. A lot of what happens there is that it's the people who are most close to you, the ones you care the most about, who you're most likely to give your shadow material
Yes.
to.
I found that out recently when you and I talked about some of the chauvinism that I was holding that I was not looking at, not seeing. It was as though I was blind, even though it kept coming up at me in my reality.
Well, humans have an amazing capacity for denial.
Yes, denial. That's the wonderful word.
I don't want to see it. I don't want to deal with it. Now understand, a lot of that comes directly out of that old school definition of responsibility.
Yes.
I see something and I don't like it. And I don't want to say that's mine. I don't want to have to say I need to change myself to make my world different. It's a lot easier to say, no, it's you and you need to change. And often it's impounded in that sense by people's relationship with their emotions. And often they filter their emotions through martyrhood, meaning basic martyr's tenet is the world happens to me and I don't really have anything to do with it. And a lot of people without any level of consciousness do that with their emotions. And how that functions is something happens in your reality and it really makes you angry.
Yes.
And you say to that person, you made me angry. And there's a little aside that you don't say consciously. And I'm now entitled to punish you because you made me angry. I'm now entitled to throw things because you made me angry. I'm now entitled to do almost anything I want because you made me angry. And I'm not going to stop being angry until you stop being angry. I have to change you in order to deal with my anger. And to see the martyr in that. Because what really happened was whatever happened out there happened, and you chose to respond. You have the ability to choose your response. And the response you chose was anger. The anger's wonderful. It's a fiery, passionate, juicy emotion. The trick is you need to express it responsibly so that you're not punishing someone, so that you're not using it with hidden agendas, with other plans in mind. That you say, this happened in my reality and I'm angry. And it's okay for me to be angry. It's okay for me to express my anger. And I can do that in safe ways. I can take a pillow and scream into it. I can go out in my car and I can just bellow at the top of my lungs and I can be angry at someone. I can go into a meditation and I can beat the heck out of them in meditation. So I get that energy out and I let it go. It's incredibly empowering. It feels really good to let yourself do that. And the same is true of those emotions that you often judge as being good. That person who you adore comes into your reality. They show up at your door and you say, oh, you make me feel love. The problem is, if they make you feel love, when they disappear, your love is gone. And it's not the truth. I have love, and I feel it and I express it. And yes, when you're near me, I choose the response of loving.
That helps us be more present when we are allowing ourselves to feel our emotions in the moment, so to speak. And
yes, it's a major key to aliveness.
Yes.
To that sense of really being present in your life every second of every day.
oh,
so
what
many
a
people are afraid of.
wonderful goal.
Yes.
Now and then I feel like I'm present, but it's something I'm still working toward being more often.
All right.
Yes.
Now, next secret in that sense about reality creating, involving emotions. We use that scenario where somebody shows up and something happens and you say, you made me feel angry. And now you're taking the deeper level of responsibility, saying, no, I'm not going to blame it on them. I'm going to tell the truth. This happened and I chose to respond with anger, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you take yet a deeper step into responsibility, and you think about the idea that nothing can physically manifest unless it's in my raw materials first. A deeper truth is that person came into my reality and they did what they did, and I expressed anger because that anger was there already, and I was looking for a place to put it.
Yes, that again is something I'm letting in more and more.
Yes, and now, on the same lines, for those of you interested in creating relationships, when you realize that love is not out there in that guy or that girl or whatever you're in love with, that it's in here. When you start letting yourself consciously express your love, giving, responding, respecting, so as to create a sense of intimacy, a sense of being known. When you let that energy flow out of you, you will experience a loving reality. When it's in your raw materials, it cannot not manifest in your physical world.
That is such a hopeful message for all of us to hear, because it could be the solution to any problem that a person might have, is to learn how to find the love within themselves.
Yes.
And they will then attract the reality that responds to that.
Yes.
I see the cameraman is giving me a signal that our time is running out for this session.
All right.
But I want to thank you so much for being present with me, Elanor,
Absolutely.
today. It's been such a treat.
Yeah,
And until the next time.
As always, a joy, a pleasure, very much an honor to have